He stares at his blood-covered hand, struggling to understand what just happened. A searing pain explodes in his side as he collapses onto the cold pavement. His attacker, a girl with a chilling smile, holds up a bloody knife. She leans over him, whispering that it's finally time for him to die. Through his fading vision, he hears her promise that he won't be lonely anymore. Lying in the dark alley, he feels his life slipping away, accepting his end. With his final thought, he wishes for another chance, a life he could live better, and in a flash, his eyes snap wide open in utter disbelief. He's no longer in an alley, but in a lavish, ornate canopy bed. A cold sweat breaks out as he tries to process the impossible situation, trying to convince himself it must have been just another terrible nightmare. But the truth is, he's been reborn as the 12-year-old son of a marquis. Memories of his past life, a world from 20 years ago, come rushing back, and he finally accepts this new, unbelievable reality as his own. He pulls back a curtain, recalling a warning he must never forget. Now living as Lehito Lindal in the Grand Alsace Empire. Lehito clenches his fist, vowing to never be weak again and to seize true power, determined to avoid the pathetic, meaningless death he suffered before. With a snap of his fingers, he begins his new life with purpose. Summoning a maid to prepare for the day, though he first requests a bath. He dismisses her in the opulent bathroom, deciding to handle things himself, and as he removes his shirt, his long hair cascades down his back, a strange feeling suddenly prickling the skin on his shoulder. He steps into the large steaming tub, ready to wash away the past. Sinking into the water to contemplate the start of his second life, a sudden realization dawns in his eyes. He finds himself submerged in a mountain of bubbles, utterly confused. Two hands suddenly burst through the foam, and a voice echoes from within the bath. As his twin sister Eri is told to stop her games, but she emerges playfully, covered in suds, greeting her brother with a sweet but unsettling smile, telling him they share the exact same face, two souls bound together as one being, and she declares that every part of her belongs to him. His gaze hardens as he claims her as his own. His thoughts turning to the corrupt kingdom they inhabit. He clenches his fist, determined to gain the power they need to survive, and Eri affirms she is the only one who shares his secret ambition. The conversation then shifts to their older brother, Irwin, a man eager to inherit the family title. But the twin brother knows it's a long road ahead. He smirks, predicting Irwin will try to eliminate him soon, seeing the upcoming entrance exam as the perfect opportunity. Eri vows to protect him, the only person he can truly trust. Her expression filled with a chilling devotion. Outside a grand estate, preparations are complete for their departure, where their older brother, Irwin, gives a condescending speech about family honor, patting his younger brother on the head like a child. And the twin forces a smile, promising he understands completely. The young noble and his sister say their goodbyes before departing. But from the shadows, a lone man watches their carriage leave. A single determined step forward signals his intent. The man who saw them off reveals a cold, calculating smile. Inside the carriage, the young noble stares out, a sense of unease growing. His sister rests beside him, excited for their trip to the capital, but he reminds her they must rest for the upcoming academy exams. As the wheels turn, their journey into the unknown begins. And suddenly, the girl senses that something is terribly wrong. Questioning why they're traveling through such a desolate forest, their carriage is now completely isolated in the barren woods. The vehicle grinds to a sudden halt, and he looks out in alarm, while his sister opens the door to ask the guards what happened, and he screams for her to get back inside. It's too late as a brutal attack erupts just outside, the sounds of a swift, violent confrontation filling the air, leaving the young noble frozen in absolute horror. Daggers clatter to the ground as the guards are taken down, and he pulls his sister close, shielding her from the assailants. Their leader introduces himself, ordering Licht, the Marquise's son, to surrender. The scene shifts to a remote safe house perched on a desolate cliffside. A door creaks open, spilling light into a dark, oppressive room, revealing Licht on his knees, captured by the mysterious attacker. A masked woman appears, the mastermind behind the ambush, but Licht smirks, revealing he expected betrayal from his own aunt. The foster mother realizes she's been completely seen through, calling him a fearsome child, revealing her plan to secretly eliminate enemies and use a professional assassin on Eri. But he calmly asks if the attack was ordered by his brother. She dismisses the question, declaring him a threat that must be removed immediately. He pleads his innocence, but she scoffs at his act. Knowing the rumors about him, she accuses him of secretly dealing with demons and using forbidden magic, and the boy's eyes widen in feigned shock at her words. His foster mother screams that his presence would tarnish the family's reputation. When suddenly, a powerful force erupts, sending a book flying through the air, his demeanor shifts entirely, questioning if she'd kill for something so trivial. A familiar voice echoes, and the assassin realizes with dread that Eri is still alive. Eri emerges from the shadows behind him with a terrifying grin, her sudden attack catching the assassin completely by surprise, and she sends him flying across the room with a single, brutal kick. The force of the blow shatters his composure, throwing him helplessly through the air. His masked face contorts in pure shock and pain. Eri stands over her defeated foe, laughing with unhinged glee. The boy explains that Eri copies him, mastering his magic and swordsmanship, and his foster mother stares in horror, realizing he's been using Eri all along. With a cold smile, he says it's time to say farewell, unleashing a blast of light. He reveals he didn't save Eri for her sake, but for his own, showing a ring that links their fates. Harming her is the same as harming him. The foster mother screams, finally understanding the true nature of his terrifying plan. She's consumed by a vortex of darkness, pulled into an abyss of watching eyes. The foster mother screams in terror as she's dragged into the swirling abyss, her form completely obliterated in a violent splash of darkness. The dark energy implodes, leaving nothing but silence behind, trapped in a void. Her body melts away as she cries out in agony. She's now inside the demon Abaddon, a prison built from dark emotion. Her final thoughts are filled with regret, wishing she had killed Lehito sooner. Lehito reveals this is the very source of his cursed magic, telling his foster mother to drown in her own darkness forever. The illusion shatters, leaving the twins standing in their ruined safe house. Eri asks if he killed her, but he calmly states that she isn't dead. Instead, she's been condemned to an eternity of darkness to reflect on her betrayal. Lehito smirks, vowing she'll stay there until she forgets how to defy them. He turns to Eri, checking if she's alright, and she cheerfully confirms she's healed. She explains that she must master this power to survive alongside him in this world. Lehito listens intently, his expression hardening with resolve. He's determined to use any power necessary to avoid repeating his past life's nightmare. But this time, he isn't alone. He has Eri, another part of himself. He calls to her, and she answers with a blood-stained, devoted smile. Eri pledges to follow him to the very ends of the earth. A week later, the twins have successfully enrolled in the Magic Academy. They now relax together in a large ornate bath, and Lehito lets the warm water run through his hand. A maid tells Eri that everyone believes their aunt is simply away on business. Eri smiles, relieved that their secret remains safe for now. Lehito's gaze sharpens, already contemplating their next move. Lehito knows Irwin's men will report their survival, signaling a failed plan. And Eri realizes they can't pretend to be ordinary students for long. She's simply excited to attend the same academy as her brother. Lehito considers the academy a gathering place for the powerful and talented, and though he's confident in his abilities, he knows 6 years of peace is impossible. His fist clenches tightly underwater. He understands that to survive, he will need to find allies. Eri asks if she alone isn't enough for him, but he knows the only one he can truly trust is his twin, a part of himself. The scene shifts to the magnificent Majandra Magic Academy, where the headmaster formally welcomes Princess Diance. The princess stands before him with a cold, imposing presence as the headmaster explains the special accommodations made for her, including a one-time exception to allow her guard and maid on campus. Princess Diance immediately questions why it's an exception, and the headmaster clarifies the academy's strict policy against outsiders. He explains that within these walls, all students are equal in their pursuit of magic, and all forms of magic are accepted even if they are demonic. The princess shouts in fury, insulted by the comparison to a demon. She turns to leave with her armored guard in tow. A strange mark suddenly appears on the back of her hand, and her guard, wearing a peculiar box-like helmet, glances back. The headmaster watches from a distance as the princess departs, her expression hardening with a cold, unwavering resolve. The camera focuses on an ornate, mechanical model of the world. A new voice warns that this empire treats those who protect the world the same as those who dwell in darkness. An academy official explains that there is no place for users of dark magic in their kingdom. He states that for the sake of research, the academy must be isolated from all worldly authority. A final stark message is delivered, demanding understanding of their strict rules. Lehito and Eri finally arrive at the grand, imposing Magic Academy. Inside a vast lecture hall, Lehito wonders how to begin making allies in this new world. He reflects on his past life, admitting he never learned the complex etiquette of noble society. Suddenly, Eri's cheerful voice calls out to her brother. She excitedly announces that she's already made a new friend, much to his surprise. A girl named Medea introduces herself as the daughter of a baron and a classmate of Ares. Lehito gives a formal greeting, but Medea seems flustered by the attention from a marquis's son. He smiles, clarifying he's not the heir and holds no special status within the academy walls. Medea appears intrigued by his unexpectedly humble response. She laughs with Eri, remarking that he said the exact same thing his sister did. Lehito watches their instant connection with a hint of confusion. Medea explains to her peers that while status is irrelevant here, disrespect is not tolerated. Eri quickly becomes the center of attention, surrounded by her new classmates. Lehito notes that one must be careful as they could become classmates with the princess herself. Medea adds that many students aim to work in the palace after graduation. Eri suddenly takes charge, ordering Medea to prepare a tea party for them. Medea agrees immediately, while another girl complains about the lack of maids. With a polite smile, Medea says she is more than happy to be of service. Lehito's eyes narrow as he observes this strange new dynamic. Later, they walk through an ornate corridor of the academy. Lehito confronts Eri, questioning why she's treating a baron's daughter like a common maid. A girl mentions she's on good terms with the princess, so it's no trouble. Her expression serene as she speaks with a gentle smile, explaining that she's the first magic user from her family to attend the academy in decades. Lehito listens intently, knowing entry requires far more than just noble status. She plans to master earth magic to develop her family's barren lands. Eri approaches, commenting on how useful such magic is for agriculture, and Lehito seems genuinely impressed by her noble goal. The girl humbly expresses her gratitude to the imperial family for the opportunity. Meanwhile, students begin to gather inside the Grand Academy building. Lehito carries a tea tray, taking on the role of a server. The noble girl from before arranges a bouquet of flowers in a vase. As the footsteps of arriving students echo through the halls, the ornate room fills with young nobles mingling before the exam. The girl quietly pours a cup of steaming tea at a table, and Lehito approaches with a smile, offering to help her. A blonde girl is aghast, scolding him for doing a maid's work as a marquis's son. She then turns to Eri, captivated by her beauty and the fact she's a twin. The girl gushes over their resemblance, joking that Lehito would also suit a skirt, and his friendly demeanor instantly vanishes. With a swift step, he decides to leave the conversation, grabbing Eri's arm and pulling her away from the stunned girl. The blonde noble's eyes widen, shocked by his abrupt departure. Lehito glances back with a look of pure irritation, while Eri simply offers him a knowing, gentle smile. The quiet moment ends on a teacup, the social gathering continuing on. Princess Diance joins the twins for tea, remarking on how beautiful they both are. But Lehito scoffs, thinking she's only interested because they're a novelty. The princess suddenly recalls a name, wondering aloud if the Kropsch family still exists. Nearby nobles begin to gossip about a family that fell from grace after angering the emperor. Their entire territory was confiscated, a punishment for some treacherous plot. Lehito's mind races, wondering if their downfall was caused by forbidden dark magic. Medea quietly warns that it's best not to upset the princess, lest they share that family's fate. The words dark magic echo in Lehito's mind, his expression turning grim. He considers the grave consequences if his own dark powers were ever exposed. Diance explains the royal duty is to master light magic to protect the people. Lehito turns to his sister, asking what she and the princess are discussing, and Eri beams, teasing him about her surprisingly good social skills with the nobility. She then innocently asks Diance if she studies any other forms of magic, and the princess scoffs at the very idea, her tone dripping with disdain. She declares that light magic is the pinnacle created to purge all darkness. With a smug smile, she dismisses all other forms of magic as utterly worthless. The surrounding students are visibly shocked by her arrogant declaration. The princess's words cause a sharp crack to echo through the room. Lehito's eyes widen in disbelief, her dismissive words striking a raw nerve. The phrase utterly worthless rings in his ears, a direct insult to his power. He speaks up, pointing out that everyone else is here to learn that worthless magic. With a sharp smirk, he suggests she should try learning respect from her peers first. Enraged by his audacity, Princess Diance slams her hands down onto the table. She furiously shouts, unable to believe he's accusing her of being rude. Lehito simply smiles, glad that she finally seems to understand his point. Lehito coldly excuses himself, claiming he's not feeling well enough to stay, and he walks out on the tea party, leaving the other nobles completely bewildered. He stands alone in a corridor, his back turned to the world. Eri watches him with a look of quiet concern. The scene shifts to a quiet, sunlit courtyard on the academy grounds, where Lehito sits hunched over on a bench, clearly overwhelmed. His fist clenches tightly in his lap, a sign of his inner turmoil. Eri approaches with a gentle smile, teasing him for being so bad at making friends. She explains how much trouble she and Medea went through to smooth things over after his outburst. He looks up in anguish, begging Eri to let him explain himself. Eri is taken aback by his emotional state, finding it highly unusual. Lehito stares at a ring on his finger, his focus suddenly sharpening, and a strange crackling energy begins to emanate from the ornate band. He reveals his magic is from the dark system, using negative emotions as a trigger. He explains that the room back there was overflowing with a storm of negative feelings. It wasn't just for the princess, it was jealousy and desire aimed at all of them. Eri asks if this is what high society is truly like, something she only knows from books. The overwhelming emotions made him feel physically ill, like being seasick. He muses that he should befriend people with negative emotions as they're easier to manipulate. Eri asks if he managed to find any potential allies like that, but he admits he didn't find anyone suitable, which is a shame. But he found something else instead. A grave danger is approaching Medea and Princess Diance. Eri's eyes widen in shock at the sudden dire warning. He laments the timing, just as Eri was becoming friends with them both, but then a new thought forms if they are now friends. Lehito reassures Eri that he'll take care of everything. Elsewhere, Princess Diance stews over the annoying Lindor twins, wondering why she hasn't seen them around the academy lately. Medea cheerfully suggests she might see them in class, but the princess dismisses the thought, claiming she doesn't care. Medea smiles, thanking the princess for always helping her, and Diance appreciates that Medea walks her home despite it being out of the way. She explains her royal residence is far from the main campus, and she was once afraid to walk through the dark forest alone. Diance sincerely thanks Medea, asking her to be her friend forever. But Medea's eyes suddenly widen in pure shock. Her expression darkens, her face hidden from view. The princess is confused by her friend's strange reaction, asking if their difference in status is the problem. Medea's face twists into a monstrous, inhuman snarl, leaving Princess Diance completely paralyzed with fear. A strange system activates, confirming the keyword friend near the target, and a new command is issued, eradicate. The possessed Medea lunges forward, grabbing the princess by the throat, and Diance struggles for air, calling out her friend's name in the woods. Just then, footsteps approach as someone arrives to intervene. Lehito appears in a flash, knocking Medea away from the princess. Diance collapses to the ground, gasping for breath in disbelief, as Lehito calmly greets her, glad he made it in time. The possessed Medea glares, her mission now facing an obstacle. Medea's face begins to melt away, her voice announcing a switch to combat mode. The blonde girl stares in horror, asking if Medea isn't even human. Lehito explains it took time to investigate her background, revealing the Kropsha family was wiped out by the Empire years ago. The monstrous Medea screams, demanding to know who the other girl is, and lunges forward in a furious, desperate attack. The twins stand ready, revealing Medea's true identity, a magical assassination doll. Her mission was to infiltrate the academy and kill the Empress's favorite. The blonde girl asks in shock when they first figured it out. As Medea's form cracks and shatters, Lehito begins to explain, stating the first clue was back at the tea party. He recalls the jealousy and scorn directed at her from other students, yet Medea showed absolutely no emotional reaction to any of it. Lehito's gaze hardens as he continues his explanation, noting she didn't even react when he was disrespectful to her. In a room full of human emotion, Medea alone felt like a void. All they had to do was confirm her family's history and wait for her to act. He then turns to the girl, calling her by her true name, Diance. The princess is completely stunned by the revelation. Lehito points to a path, asking if Medea walked her home this way every day, explaining the doll returned alone through the dark woods after escorting her. Diance covers her mouth in horrified realization. With a cruel smile, Lehito wonders what a real human would have felt, telling Diance she would have noticed sooner if she'd treated Medea like a friend. The princess is left speechless, crushed by the weight of her own failure. Lehito clarifies this isn't for the princess's sake, but because Eri considers both her and Medea friends, asking if it's not tragic for a friend to be used as a weapon. As he speaks, Eri unleashes a flurry of sword strikes, her blade clashing against the monstrous doll. Diance realizes with horror that a normal sword is useless, and tears stream down her face in utter helplessness. Her fists clench in frustration and shame, and she finally explodes, screaming that she already knows she's naive. She cries out that she's aware everyone resents the royal family, shouting that she understands their scorn perfectly well, admitting she didn't know how to be a real friend to Medea. But even so, her resolve hardens, and she grabs Lehito, screaming that hearing it from him is infuriating. A faint knowing smile crosses Lehito's lips, which only enrages the princess further. He suddenly leans in and kisses her, catching her completely off guard, his eyes focused with intense concentration. Diance immediately collapses, rendered unconscious. Eri appears with other students, telling Lehito she'll escort the princess home. She asks what he'll do, promising to return for him later. Lehito faces the golem, noting it has no negative emotions to fuel his magic, but the ring on his finger glows, having absorbed Diance's emotional outburst. He declares that while the Princess of Light is away, he'll save Medea himself. Eri and the others lead the princess away from the looming threat. Eri turns to her brother, asking him to handle Medea, and Lehito stands resolute, his hand resting on his sword. Facing down the monstrous, vine-covered form of the assassination doll, he tosses his ring into the air, shouting for his power to emerge, and from a flash of light, a suit of dark armor materializes. Lehito calls forth his noble knight of darkness, Gebura, a being that immediately clashes with the monstrous Medea. As the battle rages, Eri prepares to cast a spell of her own, while the Dark Knight stands firm against the doll's assault. A blinding flash of energy erupts from the battlefield, striking Medea's form with overwhelming power. The doll is bound in chains, a physical manifestation of someone's malice, and Lehito vows to erase that darkness with his own dark magic. He walks away as Medea crumbles, hoping this brings her false life some peace. Later, at their lavish residence, the conflict seems a world away. A hand gently scoops water from a steaming bath, where Lehito soaks, finally able to relax after the ordeal. He closes his eyes, grateful for the first good sleep he's had in ages, when he notices Eri is in the bath with him. She quietly mulls over the events that just transpired, before teasing him for being so hopelessly bad at making friends. Lehito opens his eyes, asking what happened to Princess Diance, and Eri explains she woke up and hurled insults about him before storming off. He sighs, accepting that the princess must truly hate him now, but he never expected to be her ally, distrusting those who seemed too kind. Lehito's thoughts turn dark, imagining a trusted friend suddenly turning with a knife. His eyes widen at the memory of such treachery, and the scene shifts to the twins relaxing in a bath. Eri asks her brother what's troubling him so deeply. He finally admits that Medea's kindness was a complete fabrication, explaining the world has a dark side the princess refuses to see. In a way, he's relieved that Diance hates him now, but Eri worries, asking if he's lost his faith in everyone. Lehito scoffs, claiming honest malice is far better than false kindness. Eri leans against him, accepting his cynical worldview, as he declares that she is the only one he can ever truly trust. His sister quietly agrees that this is how it should be. Her mind drifts to a fantasy of applause and congratulations, where she blushes, overjoyed that her dream is coming true. The dream of finally marrying her own brother. In her imagination, they stand together as a couple, and she embraces him tightly, promising to never let go. The hug is possessive, a vow to keep him for herself, swearing she'll never give him up to anyone else. Her inner thoughts reveal a deep, obsessive love for her brother. The story then jumps forward 1 month after the incident with the princess. Lehito is in a music room practicing the violin under a watchful eye, while Eri watches from the audience, completely mesmerized by the sight. He plays with a focused, almost detached intensity, the ornate ring still on his finger as he draws the bow across the strings. A flashback begins, showing 2 female students in awe of a performance. Lehito plays a beautiful nostalgic melody on the violin for his class, performing Pachelbel's Canon, a song completely unknown in this world, and the teacher praises his skill, noting its importance for magic chants. He singles out Lehito's performance as exceptionally beautiful and unique. Lehito seems momentarily caught off guard by the direct praise, but he quickly recovers, politely accepting the compliment. A classmate excitedly praises his unexpected musical talent, and she walks beside him, calling him her dear brother. Eri recalls how she slowly learned to befriend her classmates. She always saw her brother as a top student, skilled in both magic and combat. Seeing others praise him brought her more joy than any compliment for herself. The classmate continues to gush about how wonderful Lehito is, and Eri proudly agrees, calling him her amazing older brother. The classmate then turns to Eri with a nervous request, asking for permission to invite Lehito to play tennis with her. Eri thinks it's a great idea, but the other girl is still hesitant. Confused, Eri asks why she's seeking her approval for it. The classmate just smiles nervously, unsure how to explain, and Lehito points out that of course one must ask Eri first. Eri's expression shifts, realizing everyone sees them as inseparable. She panics internally, wondering if she seems overly attached to her brother. The classmate thanks her and runs off, telling her not to worry about it. Eri smiles, thinking this is a perfect chance for everyone to see Lehito's greatness. The girl happily waves to Lehito, who seems oblivious to their entire conversation. The classmate nervously asks Lehito to play tennis with her again sometime, and he agrees with a polite smile, seeing no reason to refuse the noble girl. She hesitates for a moment, her words trailing off, before shyly asking if it's all right for just the two of them to go. Lehito calmly confirms that he doesn't mind at all, and the girl's face lights up with pure, unadulterated joy. But in her excitement, she trips over her own untied shoelace. Stumbling forward with a cry of surprise, she crashes hard onto the stone pavement. Eri turns from the sidelines, her expression shifting to concern. Lehito immediately rushes to the fallen student's side, asking if she's all right. The girl winces in pain, clutching her leg tightly, explaining that her leg was injured in the fall, and another classmate volunteers to take her to the infirmary. The injured girl apologizes to Lehito, postponing their tennis match. He watches her leave with a troubled expression on his face. The other student helps her limp away from the courtyard. Lehito and Eri stand together, observing the aftermath in silence. His gaze sharpens as he turns to his sister, asking if she did something. Eri feigns ignorance, questioning what he could possibly mean. He reveals he felt a sudden burst of negative emotion from someone nearby. The scene transitions to an ornate garden archway. Eri looks genuinely confused, repeating the phrase negative emotion. Later, she asks if people still resent him, but Lehito says that's common. He clarifies that the feeling he sensed just now was something different entirely. A pair of dark boots steps into view as a voice greets Eri. Eri turns with her lunch tray, recognizing the person, and their twin brother, Princess Diance, appears, greeting them with a bright smile. Lehito, mid-bite, offers a formal hello to Her Highness. Diance asks if she's eating alone, passive-aggressively noting her lack of friends. She then takes a jab at Lehito, saying it's better than only having a sibling for company. The princess seems to recall a moment of unease regarding the twins' intense bond. Later, tea is poured into an ornate cup, the scene shifting. Diane smiles warmly, thanking Eri for coming to see her. She explains she's been wanting to properly thank her since the incident a month ago. The princess happily declares them friends, and Eri quietly accepts. Lehito simply eats, observing their interaction with a guarded expression. Diance's reflection appears in her teacup as she reflects on the past month. The three sit together, and she admits she feels she wronged Medea. Lehito remarks on her kindness, even towards the golem that tried to kill her. Diance insists Medea was just following orders and that her fate was tragic. A maid suddenly appears before them, offering her services. The maid is revealed to be Medea, smiling serenely. Diance screams in utter shock, questioning how she's here after being destroyed. Medea simply offers a knowing, unsettling smile in response. Lehito remembers the battlefield, certain he returned the golem to dust with his magic. Medea calmly explains the situation, inviting them to Professor Magdalena's lab. The three students look on, confused and concerned by the mention of a professor. A woman with long, flowing hair walks through a lush, sunlit greenhouse. She holds a watering can, gently tending to the exotic plants around her. A new professor named Magdalena appears, greeting the students with an unsettling smile. She immediately calls them out for fighting on campus with magic, a clear violation of school rules. A maid confirms the professor is aware of the incident from a month ago, and Lehito grimaces, admitting he tried to erase all traces of the battle. He was especially careful to hide the signs of his dark magic, but it wasn't enough. Professor Magdalena explains that on such a large campus, it's easy to miss things, but she smugly declares that she is special. Her specialty is magical biology, and she sensed the golem's life energy being destroyed. Lehito realizes she didn't sense the fight itself, but the destruction of Medea specifically. The maid, a rebuilt Medea, explains the professor gave her a new body after she lost her old one. Her inner thoughts reveal she enjoyed the chaos, but hated her previous master's commands. The professor asks what happened, claiming Medea has no memory of them. A blonde classmate stammers that it was nothing important, but the twins remain silent and watchful. Professor Magdalena seems to accept her answer with a simple "I see." Medea dismisses the topic, saying she was only summoned because someone else wanted to see them. She embraces her new master, promising to obey her commands without question. The blonde classmate is horrified, questioning the professor's lack of ethics. But Magdalena declares that for the sake of magical research, anything is permitted. Princess Diance listens, her expression hardening with disapproval. Medea simply smiles, accepting this as the Academy's rule. Lehito questions the princess's silence, noting he's also a student now. The professor patronizingly calls Diance a good girl for her compliance. She then offers Medea to them as some kind of reward, but Diane steps forward, declaring Medea was her friend and shouldn't be treated like an object. A flashback begins with a teacher's unsettling smile, as Diane passionately shouts that Medea is not an object. Medea gently takes the princess's hand, catching Diane completely by surprise. The golem asks if she is still just a thing in Diane's eyes, wondering if it's okay to stay by her side even as a golem. Diane breaks down in tears, embracing her friend tightly, declaring that Medea will always be her friend, no matter what. The scene shifts to Lehito questioning a teacher about a golem student, but the professor, Magdalena, assures him Medea passed the exam fairly. She speaks of their noble mission to pursue magical research, a path where all who seek knowledge are considered equal. Diane realizes this academy doesn't discriminate based on status, and she looks on with a newfound determined expression. Magdalena dismisses them, telling Diane to get Medea a proper uniform. The three students walk away through the school grounds, and Diane politely bids the professor farewell. Magdalena's gaze lingers, her thoughts turning to Eri. In the present, she asks Eri to stay behind for a moment. The scene changes to a humid, sunlit conservatory. Someone is barefoot, relaxing in the warm environment. Eri nervously addresses Professor Magdalena, finding herself suddenly standing in her undergarments. The professor is also undressed, casually telling her it's fine, as a strange glowing pattern appears on her arm. Professor Magdalena recalls Eri's exam, noting she couldn't use her declared magic. And Eri admits she has power but doesn't know how to control it. The professor then asks why powerful magical traces linger around her, leaving Eri completely stunned and at a loss for words. Magdalena cuts to the chase, asking if they were the ones who destroyed Medea. She reveals her ability can trace the remnants of magic left on a person's body, and with a knowing look, she asks if Eri is hiding something from her. Eri panics, desperately telling the professor not to touch her. Magdalena dismisses her fear, saying it's common for new students to awaken latent powers, but she finds it strange that Eri is completely unaware of her own immense energy. A flashback reveals the truth. Eri has secretly used her magic to eliminate her brother's enemies. Her twisted expression shows a desperate fear of Lehito discovering her violent secret, believing if he ever found out, she would no longer be allowed by his side. Back in the present, Professor Magdalena's glowing hand touches the ground, sending magical tendrils creeping across the floor and onto Eri's body. The professor has never seen anything like it, suspecting Eri holds a special secret. Eri gasps, overwhelmed by the invasive magical probing. Leaning over her, Magdalena asks if she's truly unaware of this power. She urges Eri to remember any time her magic might have activated on its own. Eri looks up, searching her memories with a confused expression. The professor explains that her magic is unstable, likely due to something in her past. She then declares her intention to dive directly into Eri's memories, catching the girl completely off guard. A sudden flash of energy erupts from the professor's spell, transporting them into a memory of a grand, imposing estate. A flashback begins with a stern man's voice calling out to Lehito and Eri, and the younger versions of the twins obediently answer their father's call. He leads them towards their grand estate, announcing a new friend will be arriving soon. And while young Lehito beams with excitement, Eri remains quiet and uncertain. Professor Magdalena appears beside Eri, revealing they are inside her memories, explaining she can read and reconstruct scenes directly from Eri's soul. Eri questions the memory's significance, wondering what makes this day so important. As the scene shifts, showing Lehito standing protectively before his younger sister. The young Lehito explains they are merely observers unable to alter this illusion. At that moment, a horse-drawn carriage pulls up to the estate, and their father gently lifts a small girl from inside. A smiling Lehito asks if she is the guest they were told about, Iris. The girl Iris eagerly agrees, ready to play after a boring carriage ride. And she immediately takes young Eri by the hand, leading her away as Lehito follows. The two girls quickly become friends, laughing together while Lehito watches from a distance. Present-day Eri recalls the girl, but insists they only met once, questioning its importance. A mysterious voice echoes through the trees, cryptically asking, why indeed? The memory shifts to the end of the day, with Iris asking if they really have to leave. And she hugs Eri tightly, promising they'll be friends forever because of their father's work. She then turns to Lehito, declaring he will be her future husband, explaining her father said he could be her groom if she took a liking to him. Iris's words about being together forever echo as Eri's eye widens in shock and her expression falls, a quiet sadness washing over her face. As the carriage departs, Iris waves from the window, promising to visit again soon. Lehito waves back with a cheerful smile, completely unaware of his sister's shadowed, empty gaze. A vision of a young girl appears, her face obscured by her hair, as a smaller, frantic version of herself plummets into darkness. Her wide, innocent eye is framed by distinct, spiky lashes. The scene shifts to a memory of a horse-drawn carriage on a steep hill, where a younger girl with those same eyes offers a sweet smile. Suddenly, the horse pulling the carriage becomes agitated, and it rears back with a panicked, desperate cry. A wooden wheel splinters, lifting from the dirt path, sending the entire carriage tipping towards a violent crash. Two shadowy assassins leap onto the roof of the falling vehicle. The young girl inside can only watch in utter terror as monstrous tentacles erupt from the ground, grabbing the carriage. A lone silhouette stands on a cliff, watching the chaos in the rain. And the younger girl from the memory smiles eerily, clutching a one-eyed doll. Eri denies the memory, but a mysterious woman insists it's a truth from her soul. The woman suggests Eri's subconscious jealousy caused the classmate's fall. But within the memory, the young girl suddenly stops. She turns to face the observers directly, asking who they are. The red-haired woman freezes, shocked by the impossible event. The girl from the memory insists they shouldn't be visible, demanding their identities. With a chilling smile, she introduces herself as Eri. Her eyes glow with power as she claims to be the true Eri, forgotten through reincarnation. The Eri we know is speechless, horrified by the revelation. The true Eri's hand covers hers, offering to take control. Eri gasps in shock as a foreign power surges through her body. Suddenly, Lehito doubles over, clutching his stomach in searing pain. Eri turns in shock, asking what's happening to her twin brother. He grits his teeth, sweat pouring down his face as the agony intensifies, trying to dismiss it as just an old wound flaring up again. But his inner thoughts reveal the truth. This wound isn't his, but a phantom pain from his past life. He stares in confusion, wondering why it's manifesting so suddenly. Back in the conservatory, the air crackles with an immense power as Eri begins to float, surrounded by dark energy, while Magdalena declares the body is now hers. Eri's thoughts race with a possessive fever. She won't let anyone take Lehito from her. A blinding light erupts from her eye, a surge of raw power unleashed, shattering the conservatory's glass ceiling in a massive explosion. The powerful shockwave rips through the lush plants inside, and a torrent of swirling dark magic fills the room. Professor Magdalena stands calmly amidst the falling shards of glass. A crazed, ecstatic smile spreading across her face as she calls the display magnificent. Eri floats in the epicenter, her form now cloaked in a dress of pure dark magic. Magdalena realizes the source of this power, a soul reincarnated from another world, resides within Eri. The professor trembles with excitement, wondering what to do with this incredible discovery. Eri's eyes turn into blank white voids as a sinister grin twists her lips. She issues a chilling threat, declaring any attempt to stop her is useless. Her face contorts into a maniacal smile, fully embracing the darkness. Now a demonic being, she hovers over the destruction, sentencing the professor to death. But Magdalena is far from defeated, shouting that she still has work to do, raising her staff to the sky and unleashing a powerful lightning spell. The transformed Eri looks down with contempt, questioning if she truly believes resistance is possible. Professor Magdalena looks up in shock, questioning what she's seeing. Her lightning spell surges through the darkness toward the transformed Eri, and she recognizes the overwhelming energy as darkness itself. The professor is thrown off balance, unable to tell who has the upper hand. The vortex of dark magic completely consumes her, pulling her down. She grits her teeth, desperately fighting against the overwhelming force. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a bustling modern city at night, and Professor Magdalena finds herself on her hands and knees on the pavement. She looks up, completely disoriented by the sudden change in location. Her mind races as she realizes this is another world entirely. A sinister laugh echoes as a hand emerges from the shadows. The true Eri reveals this was the world she and Lehito once inhabited. She recalls giving Lehito countless chances to love her, but he always misunderstood. A blood-soaked knife appears as she reveals she chose to punish him instead. Out of kindness, she gave him one more chance by reincarnating in this new world, admitting her own reincarnation was flawed. But it doesn't matter now. She forms a blade from pure darkness, turning her attention to Professor Magdalena, thanking her for finding her and promising a quick, painless end. The professor realizes with dawning horror, this is the darkness within Eri. A darkness born from an obsession so strong, it followed Lehito through reincarnation. Meanwhile, a concerned classmate asks Lehito if he's all right, and he dismisses her concern, though he admits to a tightness in his chest. A sudden urgency grips him. He knows he has to get to Eri. Back in the mental world, the true Ares attack is suddenly halted, her expression turning to confusion as she looks at what stopped her. The transformed Ares cries out, her dark magic dress shattering from an unseen blow. Professor Magdalena grits her teeth, sweat beading on her face from the immense strain, her hand glowing as she channels her power into the attack, clenching her fist with resolute determination. The demonic Ares screams in fury, accusing the professor of trying to claim her brother. But from within, the original Ares consciousness looks on in horror, asking who this being is. The possessed girl unleashes a devastating beam of energy from atop a towering structure, taunting her opponent, claiming she should already know who she is. In a mental space, her true form vows to never surrender Lehito to anyone, declaring with chilling certainty that he belongs only to her. The original Ares soul recoils, horrified to be called a mere reincarnation vessel. The demonic being summons a storm of countless blades, a deadly arsenal at her command, as her true self floats at the center of a vortex, staking her claim on Lehito. Her eyes, framed by those distinct lashes, burn with possessive obsession. Suddenly, a hand within the mental plane grabs a crude wooden club, catching the reincarnated soul completely by surprise. She retaliates by manifesting a modern pistol in her hand, while Professor Magdalena, now with a third eye revealed, watches with alarm. A vortex of darkness swirls as the true Ares claims ownership over the body, telling her modern self that Lehito is not hers to have. The original Ares hand reaches out, rejecting her past self's claim. But the reincarnated soul would destroy the world to keep her brother by her side. The original Ares desperately begs her to stop, as the transformed body writhes, caught in the internal struggle, and her silhouette is blasted back, questioning why this is happening. A girl with spiky lashes screams in disbelief, questioning how someone could be stronger than her, and her rage explodes as she screams about their shared destiny, unleashing a colossal pillar of pure dark energy into the sky, which erupts into a blinding explosion that engulfs an entire city. Back in the present, Professor Magdalena looks on in shock, her third eye now revealed. Sitting on a strange beach next to the unconscious body of Ares, the professor finally understands the terrifying scale of Ares' dark magic, a power so immense it could easily destroy the entire world. A sly grin spreads across her face. This result is far better than she ever expected. Just then, Lehito rushes in, shouting for the professor as he sees the lab is in ruins, but Magdalena calmly explains there was an accident, assuring him Ares is fine. Lehito frantically shakes his sister, desperately trying to wake her up, asking with a worried expression if she did something reckless again. Ares awakens, dazed and confused, claiming she doesn't remember what happened, but then she smiles sweetly, vowing to cherish her brother more than ever before. Her sudden declaration leaves Lehito completely stunned and at a loss for words. Professor Magdalena watches the twins' interaction with a knowing, calculating gaze. Lehito can only mutter his sister's name, trying to process her strange behavior. An octopus-like creature suddenly appears, complaining it wasn't told about this development, and Magdalena warns Lehito not to agitate Ares any further. A memory surfaces of a conversation about Ares' power existing solely for Lehito's sake. As the professor explains, the world nearly ended just from her magic reacting to his feelings. As they leave, another girl warns Lehito not to make a mistake in his judgment. The scene then shifts to the grand and imposing Lindor family estate, its tall, arched windows reflecting the quiet, ominous sky. The scene transitions to a quiet moment with a steaming cup of tea and a book is opened, signaling a flashback to a different time. A maid enters a lavish room, formally addressing a young Lehito, who sits with Ares while learning a letter from his father has arrived. The envelope is sealed with an official family crest. Lehito reads the contents, an invitation to a War Comrades Association meeting. Ares looks up, confused by the unfamiliar name. So Lehito begins to explain their world is like a coin with two sides. He describes a dark world that constantly seeks to invade their own, revealing a great war was fought against these forces a century ago. The association, he says, was formed by the heroes of that war for the imperial family. Ares looks on with admiration for her brother's vast knowledge, as Lehito reveals their father wants him to attend in his place. His sister is shocked he's being sent as the family representative, but Lehito reasons it's simply because they're already in the capital for school. Ares smiles brightly, seeing it as proof he's finally being recognized as an adult. But a flicker of suspicion crosses Lehito's eye. He can't shake the feeling there's a hidden motive behind the simple request. His thoughts turn to his eldest brother Irwin and his aunt Linda, suspecting they previously sent assassins to eliminate him. Meanwhile, at a grand mansion in the Lindor territory, a teacup suddenly shatters on the floor in a fit of rage. A woman learns that Lehito is attending the meeting in his father's place, and Linda erupts in fury, demanding to know why he isn't dead yet. An assassin is shown being struck down. The attempt on Lehito's life, a clear failure. A subordinate urges Lehito's furious brother, Irwin, to calm himself. But Irwin confronts his aide, Hajar, about his own ambitions. He seethes at the thought of letting his brother Lehito advance unchecked, and Hajar can only agree with a grim expression. The aide reminds him their father is known for his sincerity, but Irwin recalls being sent to the same association as a student. His gaze darkens with resentment and suspicion. Hajar reveals the active generals support Irwin over their own father, a fact that clearly gives the elder brother pause. He continues, noting their father is aging and Irwin's time is near. It would be a problem if Lehito is thriving when that day comes. Hajar grips his weapon, assuring Irwin he has a plan. If Lehito uncovers the association's true purpose, he will be eliminated immediately, a promise that brings a sinister smile to Irwin's face. Meanwhile, at the Magic Academy, Eri walks alone on the grounds. She's later found dozing at a desk, utterly exhausted. A classmate invites her over, noticing she's lonely without her brother, but Eri drowsily points out her friend's home is the Imperial Palace. The girl, a princess, asks what's so odd about inviting a friend over, and another friend quickly reassures her it's perfectly normal. The princess still seems a bit flustered by the interaction. That night, they arrive at the magnificent Imperial Palace. Eri is thrilled to be at a sleepover with her new friends. While a royal guard stands stoically outside their room, an ornate censer releases fragrant smoke, setting the scene for the night. Back at the school, Eri's friends discuss Lehito's unchanging personality, which prompts a blonde girl to complain about her own cheeky twin brother, clenching her nightgown as she utters his name Diance. And another girl quickly apologizes for speaking ill of Lehito in front of Eri. Eri just laughs, explaining her brother is blunt, has no friends, and is clueless about girls. An assessment so harsh it leaves her friends looking on in disbelief. But she smiles serenely, admitting she loves that about him. She feels completely protected by his strength, and that's all she'll ever need. A declaration of devotion that makes the blonde girl blush. The blonde girl remains flustered over her brother's difficult personality, so her friend poses a hypothetical. What if Lehito were weak and needed protecting instead? The question makes both Eri and the blonde girl pause to seriously consider it, conjuring a ridiculous image of Lehito in an embarrassing cat-made outfit. And the suggestion is met with a sudden, intense aura from the other two. As the blonde girl drools, completely captivated by the idea, both she and Eri give an enthusiastic thumbs up, fully on board with the fantasy, leaving their friend flustered as they decide to discuss it all night long. The scene shifts to a cold, snowy night in a dark forest, where Lehito shivers on horseback, commenting on the biting cold. He finally arrives at a massive fortress, the War Comrades Association headquarters. He notes its impressive structure, a renovated stronghold from the last Great War, and a figure with long twin pigtails emerges from the main gate to greet him. Lehito's eyes widen slightly, caught off guard by the reception. A young woman with a sword on her back formally addresses him, saying she's been waiting, and with a stern expression, she officially welcomes him to the association. Lehito's expression hardens with resolve as he prepares for the meeting, while from inside, Eri excitedly fusses over his formal attire for the occasion. A horse-drawn carriage arrives and a girl in a dark dress awaits him. She introduces herself formally as Minamo, his escort for the day. Minamo leads him toward a massive, fortress-like building in the capital, and Lehito follows her up the imposing stone steps, entering a new world of politics. Two heavily armored guards stand watch at the entrance to the association, and Minamo exchanges a few words with them, gaining passage inside. The heavy doors creak open, revealing the path forward into the chamber. They enter a grand study where an old man sits beneath a large, formal portrait. Lehito stands before the desk, looking small in the vast, intimidating room, as the man writes with a quill, formally welcoming Lehito of the Lindor House. He introduces himself as Baron Boltzmann, thanking Lehito's father for his donations, and Lehito bows respectfully, formally announcing his name to the Baron. He presents the official letter of introduction from his father as proof, which Minamo takes to present to the Baron for his inspection. Baron Boltzmann peers at the document, carefully examining its contents and seal. He confirms its authenticity and asks Lehito to pass on his regards. The Baron offers to write a reply, telling Lehito to wait with Minamo, but Lehito states there's no hurry, remarking on the power of the written word. He explains that letters and documents are what truly move armies and governments, and the Baron agrees, noting that everything is done by letter in his line of work. Lehito's eye widens slightly, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. The Baron then draws his attention to the magnificent portrait hanging on the wall, which Lehito confidently identifies as the first emperor of fact known by everyone. Lehito studies the portraits of past lords, knowing he must evaluate everyone aiming for power as he carefully considers who is an ally and who is an enemy. His focus landing on the faces of the powerful men who ruled this land. Eri looks over, sensing her brother's sudden tension and confusion. While the maid, Minamo, asks if something is the matter. Lehito finds himself in a grand hall, noting the absence of his father and the Empress. Minamo stands by silently, her expression unreadable and still. An elderly man in a military uniform greets him, making a casual remark, and then formally addresses him as Lord Lehito, immediately questioning his thoughts on the Emperor himself. Lehito admits he's never even met the Emperor, caught off guard by the direct question. He chooses his words carefully, affirming his family's unwavering loyalty to the throne. The old man's eye glints from behind his glasses, scrutinizing the boy's response. Lehito realizes with a sweat drop that it was the wrong answer. The man slams his hand down, accusing the Emperor of despising his knights, and Lehito is horrified to hear such open treason, realizing the danger he's in. He wonders if his own father shares these treacherous views, but the man simply denies it with a single word. Lehito wisely declares he will pretend this conversation never happened. The man seems pleased, telling him to take a reply back to his father. He hands over a letter sealed with an official crest. Lehito bows his head, accepting his dismissal from the tense meeting. As he leaves, the old man calls him a wise boy, then turns his attention to the silent maid, Minamo. His face darkens as he gives a chilling order: eliminate Lehito. Minamo confirms the order to kill Lehito, as the Baron deems it the wisest course. The old man sits at his desk, musing that with a single letter, he could topple the Emperor. His association secretly unites disgruntled nobles and retired knights preparing for a coup. In a rainy fortress, the true power of the written word is revealed to move the world. Back outside, Minamo offers Lehito shelter, but he declines, saying his sister waits. They exchange a formal farewell in the downpour, their business seemingly concluded, and Lehito turns to leave, walking alone into the dark, rainy night. Minamo watches him depart with a cold, emotionless gaze, her deadly mission set. But Lehito stops, realizing something was fundamentally wrong with that room. He recalls the Baron's face, understanding he should have felt malice toward the Emperor. All the old heroes in that association had been betrayed by the throne. Yet he couldn't sense any darkness or ill will from any of them. It means Baron Boltzmann has no darkness in his heart. A complete contradiction. Lehito wonders if his own magic has failed him, questioning his senses. His expression hardens as he tries to solve the impossible puzzle. He turns back to the stables only to find his horse is missing. The knights are gone too, leaving him completely alone in the rain. Suddenly, Minamo appears directly behind him with a chilling intensity, and Lehito's eyes widen in dawning horror as he senses the trap. A sword bursts through his chest from behind in a brutal, silent strike. His face contorts in agony and utter disbelief at the sudden betrayal. The silhouette of his escort, Minamo, revealed as the assassin. He stumbles, realizing he is being murdered in this desolate place, desperately wondering why he couldn't sense any malice from her at all. With blood on her cheek, Minamo coldly bids him a final farewell. Minamo stands in the rain, declaring her actions are correct, as Lehito lies defeated on the wet ground, accepting his fate. Her heart is clear, without a trace of regret, guilt, or even malice. And he realizes he couldn't sense the intent of the one who struck him down. His mind flashes back, remembering his previous life ended just like this. The dark silhouette of his attacker looms over him in the downpour, and the feeling of betrayal is all too familiar. He recalls his past self, a successful man overlooking a modern city, until his childhood friend betrayed and killed him, changing everything. He tries to remember the face of the one who ended his first life, but her name completely escapes his memory. His consciousness fades, falling through a dark, empty void. Suddenly, Lehito's eyes snap wide open, finding himself in a lavish, unfamiliar canopy bed. He wonders what happened, noticing a strange collar around his neck, and a sharp pain reminds him of his grievous wound. The sound of movement draws his attention. Someone in elegant boots is approaching his bedside, and his eyes widen with disbelief as he recognizes her. Minamo stands over him, warning him not to move just yet. He's stunned. She could attack him without any detectable presence, and she explains his wounds were treated, but he needs more time to heal. When he asks where he is, she simply states it's her room. Lehito demands to know why she stabbed him, and she answers it was an order, which prompts his next, more confusing question: why did she save him? Minamo explains she was simply caught off guard for a moment, but a young knight with her feels he's being mocked and underestimated. Minamo states that for a knight, an order is sacred and a lord must be trusted. prompting the knight to ask if that applies even to Baron Boltzmann. The Baron's ideals are the associations, and they openly question the Emperor's authority. So Minamo confirms they want the continued cooperation of the Lindor house. The knight hopes they can finally achieve their true purpose as comrades, a purpose revealed to be the complete elimination of the Emperor himself. The knight realizes the gravity of the plot. This is a coup, an act of terrorism. The scene shifts to Lahito, bandaged in bed, certain his father would never betray the throne. But Minamo delivers a shocking blow. His brother Irwin has already pledged his support. She then formally asks Lahito to lend his power to their cause, but Lahito's ring, which detects malice, remains strangely inert. He recalls that Baron Boltzmann never mentioned any of this during their meeting, and Minamo admits the plan was supposed to be a secret. When asked why she's telling him, she simply says she was never ordered not to. Lahito bolts upright, demanding to know where her loyalty truly lies. But her gaze remains fixed on him, unblinking and intense. He suddenly realizes he's only in bandages, utterly mortified by his state. Minamo explains she treated his wounds and had to undress him, assuring him that only she knows he's alive and safe in this room. She then blushes, recalling how beautiful he looked, like an angel, a comment that sends Lahito into a full-blown panic. Minamo leans closer, her expression fervent, declaring he is the angel she's been waiting for. Lahito can only stare back, completely stunned by her obsessive declaration. Lahito's ring suddenly begins to glow with a strange power, reacting to a dark presence emanating from someone nearby. Minamo blushes and drools, seemingly aroused by his dark aura. Lahito recoils in horror, telling her to stop looking at him like that. He questions her loyalty, reminding her she serves Baron Boltzmann. But Minamo cryptically states that everything depends on Lahito's choice. She offers to serve him if he joins his brother Irwin and the association, but if he refuses, she makes it clear she will have to eliminate him. He's given until his wounds heal to consider her chilling ultimatum. Lahito is left stunned, trapped by her impossible proposition. Later, he awakens bandaged and confined to a bed, a prisoner. His mind races, trying to figure out a way to escape his captors. He knows he can't stay with Minamo and must find a way to break free. Joining Irwin is unthinkable, which means they will surely try to kill him. He tries to move, but winces. His injury is still too severe, the pain reminding him he's too weak to fight or flee just yet. He realizes he needs more dark power to heal his wounds quickly, and with grim determination, he raises his hand to use the ring's magic. A grotesque eye forms on his arm as he prepares to summon a familiar. His thoughts turning to the one person he needs to protect, Eri. A vision of his sister's smile gives him the strength to carry on, and he vows to survive and return to her no matter what it takes. The scene shifts back to the imposing fortress of the association. Minamo stands in a darkened hall, reporting to a hidden superior. Baron Boltzmann sits in a wheelchair, his presence looming in the shadows. Baron Boltzmann asks Minamo for a report on Lahito's disposal, but she admits that he got away and she failed her mission. The Baron reminds her he raised her as an orphan, instilling absolute loyalty, and she confirms that he alone is the one who taught her everything. Her mind flashes back to his teachings that a knight's trust in their lord is absolute. Minamo seems to hesitate, her resolve wavering for a moment, her eyes swirling with a conflict she cannot voice. Enraged, the Baron sits in his chair, his expression turning monstrous. He suddenly lashes out with a vicious backhand strike, the blow landing hard across her face. He grabs her by the hair, demanding to know if she can't even trust him. The Baron roars that her plan is useless, as Irwin has already seized control of the Lindor house. Minamo quietly states the final step is to poison Lahito's father. He gives her one last command, prove her loyalty by bringing him Lahito's corpse. Minamo stands alone in the hall, her duty now crystal clear. But behind her, a dark presence begins to manifest unseen. It's Lahito's familiar, a small spy that transmits everything it sees. Back in his room, Lahito's eyes snap open as he receives the intel, realizing the Baron has no malice, yet his actions are undeniably evil. The familiar reports that it was spotted while searching for an escape route elsewhere. Minamo's silhouette stands in a corridor, sensing something is amiss. The scene pans out to the desolate, ruined fortress where they are hidden. Inside, the familiar hides near a painting of a winged angel, a portrait that bears a striking resemblance to Lahito himself. Minamo and another girl gaze at the painting, reverently calling him Angel. A flashback reveals a man with a raised sword standing over a fallen child. A blade is passed from one hand to another, a grim inheritance, and a younger, bloodied Minamo accepts it with fierce determination. She remembers a kind young man in a crisp uniform, smiling gently, and an innocent girl with pigtails holding a bouquet of flowers, but that memory is shattered by a blade slicing through the blossoms. A dark silhouette of a man running the young girl through with his sword back in the present. Lehito reaches out with his ringed hand as the memory shows a hand patting the blood-splattered Minamo's head. Baron Boltzmann's voice echoes, assuring her she did the right thing. He told her of a prophecy depicted in a painting of a winged angel, a savior whose appearance would grant absolution for all sins. Minamo tearfully prayed for her angel to appear and save her soul. Elsewhere, Lehito senses a powerful presence, realizing it's close. He has found it, the ultimate darkness of the heart. Following the feeling, he steps through tall grass into a hidden place and discovers Minamo in a ruined chapel before the angel painting. A girl with pigtails is with her, shocked that he found their sanctuary. She then notices Lehito is wearing her dress, a smug look on his face. He explains he couldn't stay undressed and had to borrow something. The girl simply states that the outfit suits him well. Understanding his arrival means he has an answer for them. She asks if he has finally made his decision about their offer. Lehito apologizes, confirming he cannot join forces with his brother, Irwin. With a defiant look, he declares his sister is waiting and he's going home. Minamo's expression hardens with cold resolve as she deems the situation regrettable, her rapier ready. A flashback reveals her looking up at a painting, one depicting a beautiful angel she believes resembles Lehito. She had waited for this angel, believing it was her destiny, but his refusal has shattered her fanatical hopes. Declaring he wasn't her angel after all, she prepares to strike. But Lehito unleashes his own forbidden darkness from his arm. He smirks, promising to show her the horrifying truth of his power. Her blade lunges forward to meet his empowered fist, and their opposing forces collide in a brilliant flash of energy. Minamo's eyes widen in shock as she recognizes his ring, while Lehito summons the King of Vanity Da to his side. A monstrous, corrupted angel manifests behind him, looming over her. The sheer force of the summoning blasts Minamo backwards. Her body thrown across the room by the overwhelming dark magic, she stares in terror, unable to comprehend such immense power. Lehito stands over her, his forbidden magic swirling around him, and with a demonic grin, he reveals he is no angel, but a devil. Back at the fortress, the battle rages unseen within its walls. Meanwhile, two figures make their way through the tall grass outside, and inside his room, Baron Boltzmann sits in his wheelchair. He calls out for Minamo, sensing a disturbance in the halls, his expression turning to one of dawning alarm. On the shattered floor lies Minamo's discarded rapier, a sign of her defeat. Baron Boltzmann notes Minamo's sword was left behind, and with Lehito gone, he realizes it was a mistake to let him live. He turns his cold gaze upon Minamo, who stands silently before him, expressing his deep disappointment in her failure. The Baron wheels himself away, recalling how he saw her potential for shadow work, remembering how he sent her parents to their deaths with a single letter, justifying it all as a necessary sacrifice to assassinate the Emperor, but a voice cuts through the darkness, asking if he was the one who killed her parents. The Baron spins around in shock, calling out Minamo's name in disbelief, only to find a monstrous shadow creature looming over him with terrifying eyes. He lets out a primal scream of pure terror and is violently thrown from his wheelchair by the unseen force. As the dark familiar grabs him while Minamo begs it to stop, the Baron frantically insists his actions were for the association's greater good, but the creature lifts him into the air, ready to crush him completely. Suddenly, a hand reaches out, commanding the familiar to stop. Lehito appears, stating the Baron still has his uses and must not be killed. Minamo looks on in utter shock, barely able to speak his name, as Lehito confronts her, revealing he knows she's a user of forbidden dark magic. He confirms he sought the same power simply to survive in this harsh world, then asks if she intends to expose his secret to the others. She looks down at her fallen sword and simply says no, her eyes filled with awe as she declares he's shown her the light within her darkness. Minamo kneels before him, pledging her sword and eternal loyalty to Lehito alone. He wonders about the association's future, determined to keep his brother from learning of his actions. Lehito calmly notes that the Emperor's death would be inconvenient right now, while Baron Boltzmann is left a powerless wreck, unable to even write for help with Minamo at his side. Lehito declares it's time to go home to his waiting sister, arriving at the Grand Lindor estate where a voice cries out in joy. A young woman rushes forward with an outstretched hand, her feet barely touching the ground as she calls out for her brother, her voice filled with pure, unadulterated excitement. It's his sister, her face lit up with a blush, overjoyed to see him again. She fawns over him, gushing about how cute he is in the dress he forgot to change out of. A moment of levity within the sprawling family mansion, but Lehito's expression quickly turns serious once more. Now in his own clothes as his sister continues to tease him about his disguise. Suddenly, she remembers something urgent she needs to do, grabbing Lehito and insisting she must inform someone named Dianus. But Lehito's demeanor shifts, his hand resting on his sword with grim purpose. He steps before a set of doors, ready to make an introduction, presenting Minamo as a former Imperial Knight who is now their new comrade. His sister asks if Minamo is also aware of the forbidden dark magic. And Minamo formally introduces herself to Lehito's twin sister, Eri. Eri clings to her brother affectionately, welcoming Minamo to their cause. Minamo asks if Eri also wields dark magic, and she confirms their powers differ, explaining that Lehito summons and controls demons from the worlds of darkness while she uses darkness to enhance her body and move through shadows. Minamo takes in this new information, realizing the complexities of their forbidden arts. As Eri asks the critical question, does this mean Minamo will become an enemy of the entire empire? Minamo declares that if Lehito opposes the world, she will follow him as his sword, leaving the girl with pigtails and her companion staring in stunned silence. Her companion blushing while the pigtail girl is completely captivated by her resolve. The girls then begin bickering over who gets to speak with Lehito's brother. The girl with pigtails stands silently, her sword held firmly at her side. Lehito assigns Minamo to guard the Lindor house, ordering her to live on the grounds, but he quickly turns his attention to the girl beside him, calling her Eri, and asks with a serious expression if she met someone named Dianus. He presses his sister for any information she might have gathered. Eri begins to recall a party she attended at the Imperial Palace with Dianus, where they excitedly pointed out another girl named Arya. The girls excitedly discussed dressing up Lehito's brother in cute outfits, but a stern maid with glasses watched over them disapprovingly, checking a pocket watch as the time grew late. The maid then informed Dianus that it was time to rest, but Dianus nervously asked if she could have friends over. The maid sternly refused, stating it was against the rules, warning that breaking them would disrupt the very fabric of causality. Eri ponders the extreme weight of such a simple rule, as Lehito listens to her story with intense focus. The maid then led 3 cloaked children down the hall, showing them to a room and telling them to speak up if they need anything. 2 of the children bid Dianus good night as they depart, and Eri recalls thinking that all noble houses must be just as strict, while the 3rd child simply smiled and offered her thanks. The scene shifts to a starry night sky, opening a new chapter in the story, where 2 young women wonder if they're truly allowed to meet the Emperor. A blonde girl with braids reassures her friend, saying he's just her kind father. A woman with glasses leads them forward, guiding them through the palace halls, and they enter a massive, opulent room, dwarfed by its sheer scale. An attendant tells them to wait as heavy doors are prepared for opening, and the grand entrance swings wide with a resounding thud, revealing a silhouetted man seated behind a large, imposing desk. He appears to be writing with a quill, focused on his work, but then looks up with a smile, welcoming them for being on time. His daughter apologizes for interrupting, but he warmly dismisses her concerns, and she beams with affection at her father's gentle words. Her friend then steps forward, introducing herself as Eri Lindor. The Emperor thanks Eri for being a good friend to his daughter at the academy. He invites them both to sit down, offering to have sweets brought out. The 2 girls take their seats on an ornate sofa, refreshments before them, but Eri's expression suddenly shifts to one of intense curiosity. The Emperor's daughter asks what's wrong, noticing her friend's distraction, and Eri admits she can't help but stare at the Emperor himself. He laughs, amused by her reaction, asking if he's different than she imagined. He tells her to relax, saying to his daughter's friends he's just a father. He then explains the royal family's sacred duty as guardians of the world of light, tasked with stopping invaders from the dark and purifying the land with magic. Eri confirms she learned all about the Emperor's immense power at her academy, and he smiles, stating this duty is why the people support the royal family. Lehito's sister sits with a gentle smile, noting that things are proceeding as planned. While elsewhere, their father smugly states that it's time to return to his official duties, his daughter looking on as he speaks of the absolute nature of rules, lecturing that breaking them is as unnatural as the sun rising at night. Upholding this order, he explains, is the sworn duty of the imperial family, and his daughter looks up at him, confused by his sudden intensity. The father's expression turns manic as he speaks of punishing any who defy the emperor. He dismisses the topic and departs, telling them to always walk in the light, and a door slams shut, leaving the children in tense silence. Back in the present, Lehito's sister whispers the details of that encounter to him, leaving Lehito to wonder if the Emperor knows of Boltzmann's rebellion. He has no sympathy for the Baron, but knows the knights will be executed without mercy. And the siblings watch the rain, fearing a massive conflict is about to erupt. He worries how this war will entangle them, two children caught in the storm. Just then, a lone rider gallops through the downpour, racing towards the Lindor estate, and a mud-caked boot steps onto the grounds. A messenger has arrived. It's Lehito's brother, Irwin, his face grim and soaked from the rain. Inside, their father panics upon learning a summons has come from the Emperor, his men thrown into chaos, realizing they are trapped with no way out. Irwin watches the unfolding panic with a cold, unreadable expression as one of his subordinates looks to him, asking him to make a decision. But their father can only stammer. Paralyzed by fear and indecision, he collapses into his chair, ranting about the injustice of being suspected. His mind spiraling, convinced that the self-righteous are the cruelest of all, and he erupts in a furious tirade, screaming his hatred for everyone, including Lehito.